So if we think about how those two routes are complementary, we can sort of think about what a journal is and what the functions of a journal are. And traditionally scholarly publishing in journals comprise of 4 functions. There's a registration function, establishing intellectual priority. So I want to establish the fact that I've done a piece of research. There's certification through peer review. So my colleagues have said, my peers have said, that my piece of research is of high quality. There's awareness, so I want you all to know that I've done this piece of research. And there's archiving, so I want people in 50 years or 100 years to know that I'm the person that did this piece of research. And the current model, the subscription model or the licensing model, bundles all of those functions together into one package. And that made perfect sense in the print environment. In the print environment, the easiest way to fulfill these functions was to print a journal and post them off to subscribers. But we're not in a print environment anymore, we're in an electronic environment, and we can begin to ask whether or not it still makes sense to bundle all of these functions together in the same way. And I would suggest that actually open access gives us an answer to that question, and the answer is that it doesn't make sense to continue to bundle them. Because you can actually look at the way in which institutional repositories and open access journals work together to fulfill those functions. So if I deposit a copy of my paper into a local repository, then I'm establishing my intellectual priority, because that deposit will have a date associated with it, and then that paper is then made public. So there was an establishment of priority there. By depositing my paper in the repository that's built to internationally agreed standards, my paper can be found. People can build alerting services based on what is deposited in the repository. And we see this at the moment in the high energy physics repository archive, which many of you will be familiar with, which is run by Cornell University. One of the things that a lot of high energy physicists do, and the first thing they do when they go in the morning and log onto their computer, is they check the feeds from archive to see what has just been deposited. So there's an alert, those sort of alerting services already exist. And archiving, well, electronic archiving is a difficult problem that we haven't quite got all the answers to, so maybe there should only be half a tick here. But the idea being that if you have institutional repositories that are based within well-established institutions, then you have a good chance of having long-term archiving, because well, certainly one of the things that libraries are very good at is archiving material for the long term. Obviously, what you don't get if you deposit your paper locally is peer review. You don't get the independent international peer review that you do from a journal, and so that's where the interaction with the open access journals comes in, because they will provide the peer review that ensures that your papers are of high quality. So you can see that the interaction between repositories and open access journals is actually able to fulfill all of the traditional functions of the journal. So you get a picture of how the pieces all work together. The author deposits their paper into either an institutional repository or maybe a discipline-based repository like the physics archive I mentioned. And then there's a series of services provided by different people. There's the registration service, which is provided by the institution, which is hosting the repository. There's the certification through peer review, which is offered by the open access journals, or maybe by scholarly societies, or you can think of a variety of groups that can offer that, and we'll hear more about peer review later in the day. There's awareness through the searching tools and the linking tools, and there's the archiving, which will probably, I would suggest, is best placed within the library environment. But at all points, the interested reader is able to have unhindered access to the research that they want to be able to read. So that's our utopian vision of open access and how it all fit together, which you may think sounds very grand and very worthy, but perhaps slightly unattainable, as many utopias are. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit more about the implementation of open access and see where we are with that. And I'll start with institutional repositories. There's a number of open source software packages that are available that allow an institution to relatively simply build an institutional repository. I'm not a very technical person, so I take it on the trust from the people who are technically expert. It is relatively simple to do. We're talking a few days rather than months and years. And then there are a number of national projects that are helping to support open access infrastructure. One of the first was the LIR project in the Netherlands, which has now ensured that all the Dutch universities have institutional repositories. In the UK, we had the Sherpa project, which worked with a lot of the Russell Group universities to ensure that they had institutional repositories. We'll hear about the project that's taking place here in Ireland later in the programme today. And then recently the European Commission has launched the Driver project, which is trying to build on these national projects to have a repository infrastructure across the whole of the European Union. There's a listing of open access repositories, Open Door, that is run by Nottingham University in the UK, which is an authoritative directory of open access repositories that contain academic peer-reviewed papers. It currently has over 1,300 repositories listed worldwide. I checked earlier this week, and 9 of those are from Ireland. So if you have a repository that you think should be on that list, then please do contact the Open Door people. You can use that listing, that service, to search across all the content listed in the repositories. But the other interesting thing about Open Door is that it gives advice to repository managers about policies. So copyright policies that are used, reuse of material policies, preservation and such like. And so if you're looking to set up a repository or to improve some of the policies that you have surrounding your repository, then that's a good place to go, because they will give you some guidance on model policies.